Of all the video games that we've played in the whole wide world, we have been face to face with a ton of enemies. Bad guys, obstacles, we've kinda seen it all, and in varying styles. From common enemies, background enemies, tough enemies, early game to late game baddies, mini bosses, big bosses. If you're in control, odds are there's someone or something out there waiting to attack. But the enemies designed for the game can really alter the experience for the player. Donkey Kong 64 has a whole bunch of baddies, and I've come to appreciate some of their designs even more over the years. So I'd like to give a shout out to the Kremling crew, and some designs that make them unique. I think we're all very aware of more of the common enemies of the game. Naughties, Kremlings, Zingers. I like to label this category as the early but a pain in the butt kind of enemies. Those beavers just get so annoying with their little whiny whimpers. They seem so below me that I tend to look over them and accidentally take a hit. They've become little punching bags to me when I've had enough. Then the classic Kremling baddie, a tier 1 baddie to put a face to the main enemies. I love how they just creep about, gotta look busy. But I especially love knocking them flat on their backs. And of course there's the ghost enemies in Creepy Castle, which I like to consider as fun reskins to the Kremlings. The funny thing about Zingers to me is how I refuse to fight them. They're up there in the sky, I'm down here, unless the golden banana is directly tied to them, or if I have homing ammo, I'll flat out ignore them. But basic enemies will always be needed. It can't always be 10 out of 10 difficult enemies. Then there's a group of enemies that have different forms after taking a hit. Phase 1 and Phase 2. Claptraps and Crossbones are classic examples. They're both playing a cartoony comedic role too. Hitting a claptrap turns it into a pair of teeth, which immediately chases after the player. And I'm not saying that I forget about round 2 with the teeth, but I'll continue my adventure in hopes I can skip past it, get distracted by an item or collectible, and get hit by the teeth chasing after me. Little pests they are. Crossbones are a clever design, and one we've seen before. But just because the head has been removed from the skeleton's body doesn't mean it's out of the fight. And while this enemy gets associated with Creepy Castle, and rightfully so, I love that we see it at Fungi Forest during nighttime. A great twist to the world that has nighttime feeling far more dangerous than daytime. Next, we have a group of enemies I consider too tough to beat. These baddies won't go down with basic punches and kicks. For clumps, koshas, and crowbots, you best come prepared. The orange grenades are kinda the only way to take them out. Well, or the instruments if you're feeling lazy. But these enemies introduce a good method of troubleshooting to figure out what works. You start to fall into a routine of throwing punches while going about your adventure, but then, whoa, hold on, this one is still attacking. Does it need more punches? Shoot it with a gun? Then, in a desperate attempt for survival, let's throw a bomb. There we go. But what's great is over time, when the player unlocks the shockwave ability, boom! Another method to take out these tough baddies. And I love how different the three are. Clumps being the big dummies in the room, you can see them eating orange grenades and burping, eating the very thing that kills them. Crowbots have this overly dramatic death animation, and it kinda reminds me of Persian or Kangaskhan in Pokemon Stadium. Then there's koshas, arguably one of the toughest enemies in the game, knocking out 2 melon lives from a swing of that club. And you'll really have to time out those orange grenades when its guard is down. Much respect. And for this next category, I like to label them as, I forgot you were in the game, but it's nice to see you. These are rare or uncommon enemies like any of the toy blocks in Frantic Factory, or the fireballs in Crystal Caves, or these attacking starfish in Gloomy Galleon, or hidden areas of Angry Aztec. The library of fast-paced and harmful books inside Creepy Castle, or a bunch of small spiders during the mini boss fight. These are a group of enemies we only see in specific locations of the game, and the brain starts to slowly unpack the memory of their existence as we're in the world. Like, if you were to show me an image of these fireball guys and ask me what game they're from, my first guess might be Super Mario 64. It's not until entering Crystal Caves and seeing this goddamn rabbit tied up to a TNT barrel that my brain finally refreshes and goes, oh, yeah, these fireball guys exist here. And a very similar process happens with these attacking starfish. I mean, it's already pretty hard to see underwater. Then you see something little floating slowly towards you. I've always thought the starfish would be friendly, but no. They are out for blood. I kind of figured we would see the spiders far more often and earlier in the game. It's a surprise they're really only seen in Fungi Forest. Creepy Castle would have made sense. Crystal Caves would also have made sense. But perhaps that's what makes them so special. They're all here for a big bad mini boss fight. There's a small group of enemies I like to call baddies with a purpose. Because sometimes it's not enough for an enemy to be surveying a hallway. We need the occasional bad guy as an obstacle to convey progress in the game. Some of these enemies are Casplats or Killer Tomatoes, as well as cops or mushroom men. That last one isn't even an obstacle, I just love how they blend into the setting and pop out to attack. But Casplats are one of the best designed enemies in this game. To know that every single world will have a blueprint golden banana hidden for each Kong is a great way to keep track of how many more need to be collected. To pause, look at the banana listing in the menu, and realize there's one more golden banana out there, there's a good chance it's a hidden Casplat. And the same works when visiting Snide and checking out the progress you've made with the blueprints. Ah, yes, I have one more missing in Angry Aztec. Let me get on that. The Killer Tomatoes almost require zero explanation. They're evil, they're harassing this poor worm, and who wouldn't want to crush them? That's the perfect solution to this dilemma. So the cops are really unique enemies to me. The way they're designed makes it so that they kind of only work in this bonus stage, Stealthy Snoop. The challenge being to make it through the maze without getting caught, because if you get busted, game over. You can't attack, and you can't be seen. Very similar to the Forsaken Fortress in The Wind Waker. A really fun, probably lesser known fact is the cops' behavior if they're outside of the bonus stage. When they're out and about in the main world, as you can see during my DK64 randomizer video.
What the heck?
Wait, what?
The Kongs will be sent all the way back to the beginning of the level. Now that's rough. Nothing would have prepared me for such a thing. Alright, and finally, they aren't technically enemies, but they are enemies of mine. You know what I mean. The Beetle and Rabbit. To call the Beetle and Rabbit cheaters just doesn't seem like enough. But if they were strapped to TNT barrels, I would hesitate to save them. Well, I suppose they aren't classified as enemies because they don't inflict damage. Sure, running into the Beetle while racing her makes you drop coins, but you don't lose health. Perhaps it's their taunting victory that gets my jimmies rustled up. Have some self-respect. The race car is a true professional. Be more like the race car. Come on. Well, that's all the categories of enemies I like to share today. It's a big game full of baddies, so it's easy to forget about the few we only encounter a few times. Is there a DK enemy you enjoy taking on in a fight? Are there any enemies you're especially tired of seeing? Let me know down below in the comments, and I'll see you next time.